A woman who spent years supporting her husband is humiliated publicly at their anniversary gala, surrounded by elite guests. He treats her as less than him, assuming she has no value, no influence, and no power. What he doesn't know is that the empire he stands on was actually built on her brilliance, and she is about to reclaim everything that was stolen from her. The story will unfold through rising tension, hidden truths, secret power plays, emotional breakdowns, and finally an explosive reversal, where she walks back into that same world, wealthier, stronger, and untouchable. I still remember the weight of the night, as if it were stitched into the fabric of my soul. Our anniversary gala was supposed to be a celebration of everything we had built together. Years of sacrifice, years of loyalty, years of standing beside a man who believed the world bent for him. The ballroom was dressed in gold light, crystal chandeliers glimmering above polished marble floors, and every table reflected a world of status that he loved more than he ever loved me. I arrived with quiet grace, not because I wanted attention, but because I still believed dignity spoke louder than applause. Guests whispered as I walked past them, not out of scandal, but out of admiration. They always saw the softness, the calm, the elegance. They never knew the storms I had learned to swallow. But he walked in differently. He entered like a king returning to his throne, eyes hungry for validation, shoulders pulled back, chin lifted, every step shouting superiority. And I followed him, not because I wanted to, but because that was what he expected. That night, I was still the woman who carried his dreams while abandoning my own. As the speeches began, his voice cut through the room with the confidence of someone who believed he could never be questioned. He spoke of his achievements, his decisions, his rise to the top. Not once did he mention the countless nights I stayed awake building spreadsheets, handling negotiations he was too careless to prepare for, or calming investors who were minutes away from pulling out. But that part never mattered to him. I had learned long ago that men like him rarely saw the hands holding them upright. Then came the moment that cracked the floor beneath my feet. Guests laughed, glasses clinked, and he turned toward me with a smile painted in arrogance. He placed one hand on my shoulder, gently, almost theatrically, as if preparing the room for the grand performance forming in his mind. And then, with the entire ballroom watching, he said words that sliced through my chest like ice. "Some of us rise naturally," he said, gesturing proudly to himself. "And some of us, well, we try our best to keep up." There was laughter. Polite, uncomfortable, confused. Some guests looked away instantly, feeling the sharp wrongness of his tone. Others glanced at me, waiting for my reaction. But I stood there, still, silent, holding my breath as if silence could shield me from humiliation. He wasn't done. "She means well," he continued with a dismissive wave of his hand. "But not everyone is built for this world. Luxury, influence, pressure, it's not for everyone. Isn't that right, darling?" The room froze. My heart clenched, but not from heartbreak. No. It was the sting of recognition. A truth I had refused to admit to myself for far too long. He didn't see me. Not my intelligence, not my sacrifices, not my value. To him, I was an accessory. Something pretty to stand next to him. Something quiet. Something small. But I wasn't small. And that night, something inside me woke up. I gave him a soft smile, the kind that masked fire with gentleness. Because in that moment, I realized something powerful. Humiliation only hurts when you still need the person who gives it to you. And I didn't need him anymore. The air around us shifted. I could feel it. People sensed the tension beneath the surface, a tension he was too blind to notice. His ego had made him careless. He thought he had control. He thought he had silenced me with one cruel gesture in front of his carefully curated audience. But in reality, he had done something else entirely. He had given me permission to walk away. I excused myself from the table with the same grace I had entered with. No tears, no shaking hands, no stumbling. I walked through the ballroom as if the ground belonged to me, not him. And as I reached the exit, I felt the powerful shift of destiny moving beneath my feet. Every step I took was a step away from being the woman he tried to shrink. Outside, the air was clearer, colder, sharper. I took a long breath and let my emotions settle into something solid. Something unbreakable. I knew the truth now. His empire was not built by him alone. I had contributed more than he ever acknowledged, and somewhere deep inside, I knew I could build something even greater alone. But life has a strange way of opening doors precisely when you need them. As I stood on the steps of that grand hall, a familiar voice called my name. A woman I once worked with. A woman whose respect I had earned years ago. She told me she had been waiting for the right moment to approach me, but when she saw what happened inside, she knew the moment had arrived. She had an offer, a position, a partnership, a chance to build something entirely separate from him. Something grounded not in ego but in ideas, brilliance, and strength. She said she had seen my work in the past. She knew my abilities. She believed in me more than the man I had spent years supporting. And for the first time in a long time, someone did not treat me as invisible. I didn't accept immediately. I simply listened, absorbing every word like a seed finding its soil after years of drought. She placed her hand on mine gently and said, "You don't need him to rise. You never did." Her words did not heal me. They awakened me. I returned home that night with a quiet decision resting in my chest. I did not slam doors. I did not cry. I packed slowly, calmly, as if shedding a life that no longer fit me. And while the moonlight spilled through the windows, I made a silent promise to myself. I would rebuild. I would rise. And when I returned to the world he believed he owned, I would stand taller, stronger, wealthier, and more powerful than he ever imagined. Not for revenge, but because I finally remembered who I was before he tried to silence me. And deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. The morning after the gala felt strangely calm, as if the storm had passed but left behind a silence that carried its own kind of power. I woke up not in our home, not in the space he believed I would cling to, but in a quiet apartment overlooking the city. A place I had kept for myself long ago, a place he never bothered to ask about because in his mind, I had no life beyond him. That small fact alone told me everything about the man I had married. I sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching light slowly spill across the skyline. Each passing minute felt like a reminder that I was free now, untethered from the weight of someone else's expectations. But freedom does not arrive peacefully. It comes with questions, fears, echoes of old memories that try to convince you to return to the familiar. I didn't return. Instead, I opened my laptop and stared at the email from the woman who had spoken to me outside the gala. Her name was Mara. Sharp-minded, unapologetically direct. A woman who had climbed the corporate ladder without stepping on anyone, which was rare in our circles. Her offer wasn't vague or symbolic. It was concrete and daring. A partnership in a new venture. A chance to co-create something innovative. Something powerful. Something that didn't require validation from men who thought status made them invincible. I reread her message twice. Not because I doubted it, but because the idea of being valued for my abilities felt foreign after years of silent dismissal. For the first time, I felt the old spark inside me flicker. Not the desire to win him back. Not the urge to prove him wrong. But the hunger to build something that belonged to me and no one else. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. His name flashed on the screen. I didn't answer. Instead, I watched it ring until the sound faded into nothing. It rang again minutes later.
And again.
His persistence didn't surprise me. Men like him always realized the worth of what they had only after losing it. But I wasn't interested in being found. Not this time. Still, a part of me wondered what he felt waking up alone. Confusion, perhaps. Anger. Maybe even embarrassment. He had humiliated me in front of an entire ballroom, not thinking even once that I might walk away from him. In his mind, I was predictable. Forgiving. Too soft to leave. Too loyal to start over. He didn't know the version of me that was slowly resurfacing. I finally opened Mara's message again, and typed a simple response. I'm ready. Minutes later, her reply came through with meeting details, contracts, vision boards, and a timeline for our project. Her efficiency reminded me of myself before marriage, before I learned to shrink my brilliance, so he could shine brighter. And now, someone wanted that brilliance again. Not as support, not as background, but as a force. The next few weeks moved fast. Faster than I expected. Mara and I met daily, drafting frameworks, planning presentations, reaching out to investors she trusted. Unlike him, she didn't take credit for work she didn't do. She didn't speak over me. She didn't try to steer my ideas into her own. It was a partnership of equals, a concept I had only read about, never lived. Every day felt like rediscovering a part of myself I thought was gone forever. But he didn't disappear. He showed up at my apartment 2 weeks after the gala. I heard the sharp knock on the door and knew instantly it was him. His presence carried a weight I recognized, the same weight that once filled our home with unspoken tension. I opened the door just enough to see him, but not enough to invite him in. He looked exhausted. Rumpled suit, dark circles under his eyes, breath uneven as if he had run up the stairs instead of taking the elevator. He wasn't used to chasing. He wasn't used to uncertainty. And he definitely wasn't used to me standing on the other side of the door without reaching for him. You left, he said, voice shaking slightly. Yes, I replied calmly. You didn't say anything. You said enough for both of us, I answered. His jaw tightened, guilt flickering across his face. But guilt is a strange thing. It only matters if it's followed by change. He tried to step forward to close the distance between us, but I didn't move. I was stressed, he tried to explain. It was a big night. You know how these events are. I didn't mean it the way it came out. You meant every word, I whispered. He froze. Because he knew it was true. He had always believed himself to be above me. Smarter. Stronger. More capable. His apology wasn't an apology. It was an attempt to restore the world where he stood taller and I stood behind him. I want you home, he said finally. We can fix this. Home. A word that used to comfort me, now sounding more like a cage. I looked at him carefully, studying the lines of his face, the familiar shape of his expression, the arrogance that still lingered beneath the surface even in his remorse. I'm not coming back, I said. He didn't take it well. Anger flickered through his eyes, followed by disbelief. He wasn't used to rejection. He wasn't used to losing. He especially wasn't used to me standing firm. You can't just walk away, he snapped. Everything we built. We didn't build it, I interrupted. I did. And you took the credit. That silence was the deepest cut of all. He stepped back, stunned, but I didn't wait for him to recover. I closed the door slowly, gently, as if placing a final seal on a chapter that had waited too long to end. When the latch clicked, I felt something inside me settle. A line drawn. A boundary rebuilt. A version of me reborn. Over the next month, things changed faster than even I expected. Our venture grew. Investors signed on. Partners offered collaborations. Mara and I became a force, balanced, strategic, unstoppable. I found myself standing in boardrooms again, commanding attention not through loudness, but through quiet authority. Confidence didn't need to announce itself. It simply needed space. And I had finally given myself that space. News of our rising company traveled quickly, reaching more circles than I anticipated, including his. I knew the moment he found out because he called again. Not out of anger this time. Out of fear. Fear that the woman he mocked publicly was becoming someone powerful enough to stand without him. I didn't answer. Not out of cruelty, but because I had learned something invaluable. You don't owe explanations to those who tried to dim your light. As our first major launch approached, I stood once again in front of a grand hall. The same chandeliers, the same marble floors, the same crowd dressed in shimmering confidence. Except this time, I was in the quiet shadow beside a man who thought he owned the room. I was the reason the room existed. People turned as I entered. Not out of pity. Not out of curiosity. But out of recognition. Respect. Awareness that something had changed, and they were witnessing the rise of someone they had never truly seen before. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. Not because I had left him, but because I had finally returned to myself.